Breaking news here on the field of 68. Gonzaga has agreed to join the Pac-12 as a basketball-only member of this new conference. And look, Jeff, if I'm being honest, it's not actually breaking news. A friend of the show, Brett McMurphy, broke this news last week, and no one seemed to believe him when he said it. Never doubt Brett McMurphy when it comes to conference realignment stuff. What is your initial reaction to Gonzaga leaving the WCC and joining the remainder of the Pac-12? What we have right now, let me just kind of, for everyone that can't keep track of what schools are in what conferences as of today, the Pac-12 currently, I believe they will start with this league, this membership in 2026. Washington State, Oregon State, Fresno State, Colorado State, Boise State, San Diego State, Utah State, and as a non-football member, Gonzaga, because you can't be a part of this conference if you don't have state in your name to play football there, apparently. So that is what the Pac-12 looks like now. The Mountain West: UNLV, Air Force, Wyoming, San Jose State, New Mexico, Nevada, UTEP, and Hawaii as a football-only member. Gonzaga to the Pac-12. Goodman, what do you make of it?
I mean, it was the best scenario for them, right? It's not the old Pac-12, which I think Mark Few would have loved to have gotten into. I've talked to Mark over the years about this, and he was frustrated with the WCC because some of those schools at the bottom of the WCC just weren't holding their own. They were killing Gonzaga from a numbers standpoint. Obviously, on court, they weren't giving them much resistance. So I think now you take it up a level, but this isn't the old Pac-12. Let's face it. I mean, San Diego State's really good, but Oregon State and Washington State, they've been towards the bottom of the Pac-12. Fresno hasn't been good. You got Boise, Colorado State, Utah State that are pretty good, Mountain West schools. So I think it's a win for Gonzaga, obviously a win for the Pac-12, even though it's not a football school per se. They get one of the best basketball schools in America. But I think, again, if you're Mark Few, you now don't have to take those long, dreaded trips all the way east. If you were going to join the Big East, it makes more sense geographically.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It makes more sense geographically. They get some better games. And even though, they're not having to travel to some of these obscure towns in the WCC, Boise State has a good program. Utah State has a good program. Colorado State, good basketball program. Nico Medved's been doing a great job. It makes sense geographically. Is it really that big of a deal in terms of how their success has been? I think they're going to continue their success. There are more challenges within this league than the league they're coming from. Another big piece of this, just from a Gonzaga perspective, they don't get that cookie cutter schedule when it comes to conference tournament play. So they're going to have to earn their way to some conference championships. I look forward to that. I think from a basketball perspective, it makes more sense to them, and there's going to be a lot more high-quality games within league than they typically get. I'm happy for Gonzaga and an absolute win for the Pac-12.
Yeah, it sucks for the WCC, but once this move actually happens, we will no longer have that narrative of Gonzaga is only number one or only as good as they are because they beat up on a bunch of really bad teams in the WCC. They didn't play anybody after conference play was over, blah, 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 this, that, and the third. Like you mentioned, T.O., Boise State, really good program. San Diego State played in the national championship game in 2023. Utah State, really good program. Colorado State, the basketball level is going to go up in terms of what they competed against, which makes sense for Gonzaga. And frankly, it felt like this was a long time coming. That program had kind of outgrown what was the WCC at that point. So sucks for that league. You know what I hate about this, guys? It's not just that the Pacific 12 now has 7 of their 8 schools are basically in the mountain regions. 6 of their 8 schools are in the mountain regions. I hate that. But I hate that the Pac-12 spent all of that time after the Big Ten came in and rated some of their programs, the Big 12 rated some of their programs, complaining about how these other conferences kind of blew up what they do, right? Blew up their league, blew up this conference, destroyed it. Well, what they did in turn was go out and blow up the Mountain West. What they did in turn was force the Mountain West to go out and try to raid these other programs or try to raid these other conferences. Like the trickle-down effect of conference realignment and what happens there, it sucks. The thing about the Mountain West, it was, I think you've said this, T.O., it was the Big East on Mountain Time Zone, right? It was the Big East, at 5,000 feet elevation, in terms of having the double round robin, in terms of how passionate those fan bases are, how good the level of basketball was, how balanced it was. And it just, I hate what realignment has done to some of the things that make this sport and college basketball and college athletics period so much fun to watch. I can't stand it. So, like, yes, it makes sense for Gonzaga. Yes, this is a huge win for the Pac-12. Yes, they now have two teams in their league that played in the last 4 national championship games with Gonzaga and San Diego State. And I hate it. I hate all of it. I hate that this is where we are in college athletics.
Yeah, listen, the other thing, the other component to this that I think is important that we haven't talked about yet is, how does this affect Mark Few's career? He's 61 years old. Does this give him a jolt to where maybe he says, you know what, I'm enjoying this, I'm going to go another 4 or 5 years? Most people think Mark Few's kind of on a year-to-year deal right now. Loves to fish. Obviously did the USA basketball thing this past offseason. Loves to spend time with the family. Could he ride out in the sunset after this year and say, you know what, I'm done. I'm done. I helped get us into a new league, and Brian Michelson is going to take over his assistant, who also played at Gonzaga. That is something really interesting to watch because, again, Mark Few is Gonzaga basketball. He is, frankly. Been in the tournament every single year since he took over in 1999, and that's probably not going to end anytime soon.
Yeah. Tio, anything else to add?
No, I just thought it was interesting. I liked your point about, well, the Pac-12 was complaining about, well, they came in and took all of our teams. Yeah, well, good. You did the same thing. A reverse merger with the Mountain West would have made so much more sense, but they copped an attitude and it just didn't work out that way. That reverse merger plus Gonzaga would have ended up with the exact same situation we're in right now anyway, which to me would have made sense. That all being said, I think it's a bummer for the Mountain West, just because you talked about the Big East. Not in terms of sheer talent. I think in terms of depth, it was a little bit better last year. But to go back to why I compared it to the Big East is the passion. They have football, but it's the only show in town in the majority of these cities in the Mountain West. But adding Gonzaga to this mix, it solidifies them from a basketball perspective, because now you alluded to it, national championship contenders, Final Four contenders, and guys that are going to be able to compete on a nightly basis. Should be, from a basketball perspective, it's going to be a good league. Fresno hasn't been great. Some of these other teams haven't been great, but adding Gonzaga ups the reputation from a basketball perspective.
And look, I kind of just took a dump all over it. I will say that Gonzaga and San Diego State have had a nice little rivalry over the years, right? And I do think that this will be something where that continues. Boise State has been a really good program the last couple of years. Boise is not that far from Spokane, is not that far from Gonzaga, and Leon Rice, of course, is a former Gonzaga assistant. We should see a nice little healthy, probably a little bit more friendly than maybe some other rivalries, but that will turn into a rivalry. Washington State is not all that far from Spokane, so that will develop into something. So
now
I do think that
go get St. Mary's as another non-football member. And you know what? You got the top 6-7 teams that are pretty good in basketball.
Yeah, well, you will. You're just trying to completely end the existence of the WCC here, Goodman, which is not very nice. I'm not trying to do that. No, you're trying to decapitate the WCC.
All right, get Grand Canyon. Get Grand Canyon or St. Mary's. How's that? Either one.
Yeah, both of them would be a lot of fun. No, look, it's the Pac-12 has basically turned into what the Mountain West was before, right? And that's just, I don't understand why you wouldn't just come together. I guess there's financial things that go above my head, but that's kind of where I'm at with it. I do think that this will, maybe the biggest thing, Tio, is what this will do for Gonzaga is eliminate the some of the narratives around.
There'll be a lot less hate.
Yes.
There'll be a lot less hate. And there'll be games in February worth watching for Gonzaga moving forward.
I just love how this turned into this all just thinking up with it. You're not wrong.
He's not wrong. I mean, other than the St. Mary's Gonzaga game twice a year, it was difficult to find those late night games that you wanted to watch ultimately for Gonzaga. Now, yeah, you got San Diego State, Utah State. We know what their resources, fan support, all that is. Boise State, we know. Colorado State, Nico's done a great job. And then you already have Washington State. that's got a new head coach, and Oregon State, I don't know. But again, even Oregon State as the 7th best basketball team, maybe in that league, compare that to the 7th best team in the WCC. It's not close.
Yeah, poor Oregon State. They were the leftovers, and they're just going to find themselves at the bottom of the Pac-12 again at this new revamped league. But yeah, Gonzaga heading to the Pac-12. Gonzaga is will be leaving the WCC beginning on July 1st, 2026. So we'll see what that ends up leading to, but it's a sad day in college athletics when this is where we kind of find ourselves ending up. So make sure you rate, review, subscribe to the Field of 68 on all different platforms. Rob Dauster, Jeff Goodman, Terrence Oglesby. See you guys later.